Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. This is Tesla Today. And because it's a Friday, we have Brian White with us. And in the last day, just yesterday and today, we've been getting a lot of news from a number of other car companies other than Tesla that has been reporting that they're struggling, just having some difficulties. And this is like the week before Tesla's about to come out with their big investors day and talking about how they're going to actually scale in massively their production of cars as well as energy. So, Brian, thank you for joining. I appreciate you all the time.
Yeah, wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me, Herbert.
All right, let's get started with the first one. So, this is, of course, we've heard Ford CEO last, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, talking about the difficulties that they were having at their earnings call. Well, they had a fire in February 4th. That was 3 weeks ago. And what they're doing is they're basically having to delay the production again yet another week following that fire. So, they're blaming their battery supplier SK because they're saying that they've got a plan, they're working on how to build these cells, and they need to work it out. But you can see that basically they're saying we agree with SK's recommended changes in their equipment and processes for SK's cell production line, and this is going to be yet another week, if not longer. So what's your thoughts on this? Obviously it's hard for us as Tesla folks to, go cramming on other car companies because, hey, it happens. This kind of stuff happens when you're trying to do this.
It's fun. The problem you get is who's the best battery company out there. And even if you go with someone big like LG, they've had problems with the Chevy Bolt having fire issues. Everybody's going to have problems, but SK Innovations is the number 6 battery producer in the world. So they're in the top 10, but the bottom of the top 10 is getting into some pretty low volume numbers. SK is trying to grow. There's going to be growing pains. This isn't too surprising. This isn't any cause for long-term concern. And I think it is funny that Ford is saying, well, we agree with their recommendations. Do you have any idea what you're talking about? Do you, when they, it's sure. I also agree with my mechanic, but I don't know what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is that this is Ford F-150, the EVs, and this is going to just, obviously delay them being able to get as many sales as possible. This is very important for Ford, and so it's a big issue.
But I think they'll be fine. I think their production volume is low enough that this isn't even going to be a blip. They're going to, as soon as they get back to production, they'll get back to the numbers. They're already underproducing what they're capable of. So this is just, it's a bump. It's unfortunate, but I'm glad they're taking the time to slow down and not sell cars on fire.
In other news regarding other electric vehicle companies and other ICE car companies. So this is the CEO Duesman of Audi, which is a kind of a brand of Volkswagen. And he's saying we don't have a factory in the US yet. And of course, the Inflation Reduction Act by the US government is heavily incenting manufacturers to build a US plant. And so he says we don't have a factory yet. And of course, with the IRA, it's naturally become highly attractive. So, unfortunately, they weren't ahead of the game. Now they need to catch up and build something. And he continued to say, in the future, the Volkswagen Group will probably build more cars for the US market there as well as than it has in the past. So they need to start building and they're behind.
And it's tricky because a lot of times, it takes years to get a battery or car factory online. Do we know that the IRA is going to be in place and have the same benefits in 3 or 4 or 6 years? It's a gamble, but the alternative is to do nothing. And I think they're realizing that that is not the right solution. So that's the whole point of the Investment Reduction or Inflation Reduction Act was to get it as much of this manufacturing in the US as possible. And it appears that it is effective.
Yeah, just on Wednesday's show, I was with Alexandra and we showed this beautiful table that I hadn't seen before of all the investments for the Inflation Reduction Act for the United States for the next 9 years. And one of the biggest one is actually the factories for electric vehicles. But I think that it said that it didn't have to have been built. It can just be in plans for it to happen and they can get the incentives. So that might be a loophole that they can still get it if they just plan to start doing it and they start working on it.
That would be helpful.
Okay. Another car company, Nikola. So we know that they've been struggling significantly with their ex-CEO and founder basically being indicted. So, but they've had significant miss. So they had their earnings call, and it said here that they delivered just 20 battery electric vehicle trucks in the fourth quarter. And it says that means around 140 went to customers in 2022, total of 140. That's less than half its already cut guidance. And then their guidance for the next year, if you can believe it, is 250 to 350 in 2023, and their fuel cells of 125 to 150 in fourth quarter 2023. Now, so they're saying that 140 went to customers in 2022, but this person, central scrutinizer, said, hey, the company shipped 131 to dealers in the entire year, and the dealers have 115 in inventory, which means only 16 are with customers. Number was 14 last quarter. And then they even said they have 127 on the Chandler Desert lot. Wow. So they,
Wow.
how many actually have gone to customers? That's a good question.
It's tricky. They're very expensive, and we don't know how expensive because dealers get to mark them up to whatever price they want, and they're turning out to be a bit of a tough sell. That figure of getting that many fuel cell vehicles out at the end of the year feels optimistic because it's still in testing. It's not a done vehicle yet, and it is. They're going to have problems, and those volume numbers, hoping to get 250 to 300 out this year. How many Tesla semis do you expect they'll be building once they get even to volume on the little pilot line, let alone finish the bigger expansion of the Nevada factory? I think those numbers are dire. I think their cash burn is terrifying. And right now is a very bad time for companies to be raising money. If they want to sell more shares, they're going to face serious dilution to get much money. And even still, a lot of companies a lot of investment firms are not excited about green tech emerging companies the way they were 2 years ago. And the same is true of the bond and loan market. The rates are high. It's a tough time to be seeking big amounts of capital. And Nikola is having trouble moving units in ways that honestly surprises me a bit because it is among the better battery electric semis on the market.
I haven't been following, but why are they even trying to pursue a fuel cell variant of the electric vehicle, especially if they're even struggling with the battery?
I think it's a legacy holdover from when Trevor Milton was still there. He was big on hydrogen. A lot of his earlier companies were assorted hydrogen boondoggles, where he made this amazing diesel conversion kit that could also run on hydrogen, except it couldn't run on either one effectively. So maybe that's part of it. Another part is they've got this insane deal on electricity for their hydrogen production plants in Arizona, which would essentially get them green hydrogen for almost the price of dirty hydrogen. The stuff that's the most of what you find on the market is hydrogen that's made from hydrocarbons, from natural gas, reformed natural gas, and it's not clean. And the kind that is clean, the kind that you make from water, is very expensive and energy intensive. But if you can get the electricity for basically free, you're kind of back in business. And I think their thought is being able to refuel much more quickly than you could recharge would be their saving grace, would be their differentiating factor. The hydrogen trucks still qualify for the green credits in every state and at the federal level that I'm aware of. So they would have, and the problem isn't that batteries can't charge fast enough. The problem is that their batteries can't charge fast enough.
So yeah, I don't know why people don't listen to Elon. He's proven time and time again he knows what he's talking about. He calls these fuel cells, right? They're foolish. Fool cells. Okay, let's move on. So we've talked about Ford. We talked about Volkswagen now, and then we just talked about Rivian. I mean, Who did we just talk
Nicola.
about? Nicola.
Nicola.
All right. So this is Warren tweet. He said that it's absurd that Rivian and Lucid have the same market cap. And he says that Rivian has a lot more cash, produces a lot more cars, sells a lot more cars, better niches, growing faster. And if you just take a quick look at these, Lucid is at market cap of 16.7 billion and Rivian is at 16.8 billion.
So Warren's a very sharp guy, and he is not wrong on this. My question is, what is the fair market value for either of those companies? They both have different problems, but really they have the same problem, which is that neither company is revenue positive on a vehicle basis. Now, when Tesla was burning cash in the early days, they still insisted on selling cars at a positive markup. We can't sell on a loss basis on individual units, or there is no path to success. You can have high CapEx and OpEx holding you back, but if you're not at least making money the more you sell, if you're losing more money for each one you sell. So Lucid, they've cut guidance repeatedly, and their cash burn is now what, $1 billion a quarter, and we now know that their cost per car is 238% of what they sell it for. That there is no path to scaling. I agree that Rivian's niche is better because they've got a pickup, they've got an adventure vehicle that others don't really have, but they are also losing money on every unit they sell. And from what Sandy Munro was saying after his teardown was that it's too expensive. What it is too complicated for the price they're selling it at. So both of them, I would say Rivian's outlook is better, but they're both terrifying to me from a financial perspective.
You think that there's an opportunity for other kind of, saving grace, other big angels come in and swoop up and either invest in them or buy them out? Because obviously electric vehicles is the future. These guys have made the start. Maybe they're struggling with production as expected. This is all part and parcel of, the growth of a small company trying to make it big. So I'm not terribly, surprised that they're struggling with their profitability. But yeah, this is it. Make or break. Are they going to die or are they going to survive? Can somebody else come in and swoop them up? Do you have any idea of potential,
Sure,
angels that will come in and win? Yeah.
Well, Lucid is already largely owned by the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. So they've got extremely deep pockets backing them. And they even want to build a factory in Saudi Arabia, which makes no sense at all. And they've got a huge factory there in Arizona that they're still building. And I don't know what they would actually build in it. Because, we'll ramp the SUV. Yes, but again, if the SUV is basically the car but slightly different, now you've just got a second car that you're losing money on in tremendous volume, or limited volume, I guess would even be worse. And then for Rivian, you've got deep pockets in Ford and Amazon who are still backing it. And I think what Rivian should have done is just focus on the Amazon delivery truck. They've got 100,000 orders there. Start getting those into volume production. But Rivian's foolishness is that they're trying to ramp 3 products at once. And that's tough for anybody, let alone a brand new company.
So again, why didn't they follow what Tesla did, right? Which is build one car, the Roadster, that then funded a second car, that then funded the third car.
So that was Lucid's plan. The problem is they started with a very high-end sedan, and that market is already saturated. There's already, the Model S. There's already Mercedes has a few, but really they're trying to compete with the S-Class, which its best year ever was only 92,000 units globally. And there's just not enough room there. And what they're trying to do to make themselves different is make a car that has technology they can't afford to put in it and luxury they can't afford to put in it. And then move down to an SUV that's going to be more of the same problem, and then get to a mass market car. They're not even talking about the mass market car at this point anymore because it's just too far out, and they're worried about their survival in the short term. And they should be. I don't know how they're going to survive.
Okay. Well, you are full of information. Thank you so much for that. I learned a lot. Appreciate it.
You bet.
So we've covered quite a number. It's kind of funny that all of this we're talking about, these are news that happened yesterday and this morning. It's just like one after another. Now, Lordstown is a U.S. based electric vehicle company and based in Ohio. I think they started in 2018, so they're relatively new. I haven't really heard about them. Nice looking car there, it looks like. Problem is, I don't think it exists. So they've announced that there's a temporary halt in the production delivery of this Endurance. It's an EV pickup truck, as you saw there. And the filings have shown that they've produced 31 vehicles for sale and delivered 6 as of January 2023. And unfortunately, they've had to shut down production and delivery because of lack of supply, or at least that's what they're calling it, lack of part design, modification, retrofits, and software updates. What do you know about Lordstown?
The bigger news is that Lordstown was still in business. They've had big problems. They got the deal of the century on that plant in, I think it was them that I'm thinking. No, maybe it's Rivian I'm thinking. But anyway, I think they hermit crabbed their way into an old production facility, got it for a song, and raised enough money to get to where they are. But again, it's the same problem. They're trying to build a truck using the same kind of design that Ford is, which is to say it's a body on frame plus batteries. It ends up being very heavy and very expensive. And that's why, as divisive as the design of the Cybertruck is, it's got some real clever first principles differences that will lower the cost, that will make it so that you can actually afford to sell it at a reasonable price and still have a margin. If that Lordstown truck is selling for $150,000, I think they could do well. I think they could survive, but I don't think they can sell them for $150,000. And the fact that they made a bunch and sold a handful is not encouraging. I don't know. I haven't seen anybody anywhere on YouTube or Twitter that has them, that actually has possession of one. So I'm curious if they all went to employees or executives, or I don't know. But the fact that they're still around is at least encouraging. Hopefully the suspension of production is temporary and not just the final nail. Who was it? There was a company in China that got all the way to production on their EVs before they closed up shop, or they suspended their line. And it was like, now is when you run out of money. But the answer is maybe. If you get to that point and you say, we've got the line, we've got the truck, we've got everything dialed in, it's a $80,000 truck and it costs us $140,000 to build, you're going to have trouble raising funds to keep going at that point.
Yeah. And to make matters worse, in addition to stopping the production delivery of this Lordstown Endurance EV truck, they're going to have to recall 19 units. The recall is because of electrical connection issues that result in a loss of propulsion while driving. Again, it's hard to, jump on these guys so much because it is part of the issue, but I don't know if they're going to survive. Before we jump off, you said crab walk into the factory. What did you mean by crab walk into the factory?
Hermit crab. Just find a shell that you can use and just move in. That's what Tesla did in Fremont. And I don't know if you remember the deal Tesla got in Fremont, but they paid what, $40 million for the factory. But they paid Lumi. But they got Lumi. Yeah, they got almost all of it. Lumi. They paid in stock. And what a fantastic deal it was for everyone, because Tesla didn't have the cash, and they and I don't remember if it was Toyota or GM that got the stock, but they ended up selling it once it 4 or 5x'd. Bet they wish they held on to it. It would be a real nice rainy day fund for them to have there. But yeah, they ended up not needing that. And I believe it was Rivian who got the factory in Normal, Illinois, and it was had been, I want to say, a Subaru or a Suzuki or a Isuzu factory, and they got it for $25 million, and it included all the equipment. So that was a good opportunity. But you can see that everyone now, even the legacy guys, are not wanting to use these old facilities. They want to build from scratch because the process and procedure is so radically different that it just doesn't make sense, even if the building is one that you already own.
Yeah. And that was the number one competitive advantage that the Tesla shorts kept saying, right? Competition's coming. Do you know how many factories Toyota has? They can produce this car with just slapping an iPad on it. and they can do it in mass production quickly because they've learned how to build cars for decades. Tesla cannot.
They've got
compete.
100 years of experience. They can flip a switch tomorrow and be an EV factory. And we now know that that is not the case. And an interesting theory I heard is, Lotus is coming back and they plan to be an all-electric brand. And there was a rumor I saw that said, do you know it's possible, because they don't have their own EV competencies, that they might be licensing technology from someone? Wouldn't it be poetic if they had to get it from Tesla after selling cars to Tesla for the original Roadster?
Why did you say poetic? Oh, I see. Because it was Lotus's Roadster frame, and then now they're gonna go backwards. Okay, gotcha. That is poetic.
That would be. I don't know if that's what's going to end up happening, but it would be pretty interesting to see if that did.
There was a question earlier, I think it was by Harry, that he was saying that who else here expected Tesla to be selling 4680 cells to the OEMs by now?
I didn't.
What did you think?
I assumed that they would have unlimited demand in-house for those cells.
Yeah, they need them themselves, and they're gonna. Yeah, they need them themselves. They're not going to do that one, but I think that they'll do the skateboard and all that.
It would be, I think it would be a good fit if it can make sense. I just don't know if it's part of the master plan that we're going to learn about next week.
Okay, so another good news regarding competitors. As we all know, recently we've heard that the federal government is incenting Tesla to open up the supercharger network to other electric vehicles, and they started. So right off the bat, just yesterday, Tesla installs and tests first Magic Dock on supercharger in New York. So they've done that, and some of the specifics are quite interesting. They said some important things we've noticed. So first of all, the Magic Dock retrofit is quick and it's cheap. It's done in a few hours with minimal effort and a little equipment. And one of the new piece of equipment they saw was this cord, which is actually not longer, it's actually shorter. So it's pretty simple for them to set this up. They've already added to the 12 stalls that are in that New York location, and they didn't just do a percentage of it, they did all of it. And then these guys are estimating that given this rollout, it's going to be quite quick to get to the 3,500 superchargers outlined by the White House to be completed in a very short period, opening up a new revenue stream for Tesla right away. And then this is the close-up. So this is what the Magic Dock looks like. It's a very simple add-on. Like you said, takes minutes. They're already doing this in Europe, but this is different in the US because we have the North American charging standard here, and the CCS, that's a CSS. So for us Tesla owners, we just pull the cord like we normally do. But if you are a non-Tesla owner, you use the app, and by using the app, it tells the system to pull this whole thing out so that it's more of the CCS adapter, and you could plug this in. So it's good news to hear that it's actually quite easy to implement and pretty quick. And yet it's going to be, and the government's paying them, Tesla, to do this. And then Tesla is able to recoup, and basically get all the revenue for life from the competitors.
And if you think about it, if it's only 3,500, you do 10 a day, that's a year. But there's 20,000-ish connectors, level 3s in the US. Even if you only did 20 a day, you could retrofit in 3 years. And if you did 60 stalls a day, you could retrofit the entirety in a year. So it's going to work. It's going to be quick.
It's going to be big. Okay.
Yeah.
So competitors are struggling. They are, competitors are struggling, and it's just one after another. Big news. And then yet, here we come. Tesla's going to do an investor day next week. And as we, Tesla fans, are aware that we think that this is a significant one. This is going to be a big deal. And analysts from Morgan Stanley, we shouldn't really care what they think, but they said that they think that this day is going to have great significance on the market's perception, not only on Tesla, but its rivals, the competitors of Tesla. So what they're saying is that they're expecting, as we all are, Tesla to unveil a suite of technologies that can enable the company to foster mass adoption of vehicles and, maybe able to produce compelling EVs at a lower price point. Now, what are the competitors going to do? So What's your thoughts on this? Is this going to be a moment of reckoning? It's already been a moment of reckoning for the competitors, but is this kind of, for some anyways,
It's going to be
in the next year?
It's going to be interesting. We know there's going to be talk about the boring tunnel. We know there's going to be talk about SpaceX, and we'd have to be insane to not think there's going to be talk about batteries and cars. The question is what and how do we make it all come together? We'll see. We'll see next week. I'm reserving some some of my thoughts until I get some more research done.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Brian. If you are watching this, please stay on. We're going to be live streaming directly on Brian's channel. You'll just automatically be redirected. Go ahead and start that, Brian.
Okay.